very clearly. He stated when he was in office, the number one problem facing our country is the breakdown of the family, right? And he went on to say that children who grow up without a father are 5 times more likely to live in poverty and commit crimes, 9 times more likely to drop out of schools, and 20 times more likely to end up in prison. Now, what's evident in society today is that many people have displaced anger and displaced emotions toward many of the things they see happening around the country, not looking at it as spiritual warfare, just looking at it on the surface as a black thing or white thing, or an emotional turn in their hearts about the way things are going, or focused on the past or what happened in the past in this country, instead of healing and moving on with the future and the way things are right now. And that sounds more like a personal concern for me. I'm looking at people individually and saying, if you're lashing out and getting angry and spewing all of this nonsense and spewing these things of negativity all around the net and on Facebook, then that's a personal issue that I think you need to deal with God. But I'll go as far as to say this. It's just become way more hypersensitive since 2013 at the death of Michael Brown and the Black Lives Movement. Listen, just a couple of years ago, 2015, 14,000 homicides took place in this country. Let's take half of that with 7,000. Okay, 96% of that 7,000 was black on black murders. And many of them go unsolved. But that's alarming. Yet you have many of these groups who are going around all over the country proclaiming that there's an epidemic going on. And the real epidemic is not what they're telling you. The epidemic is much more of a concern. And I'm losing my mind and going crazy. I'm trying to figure out, am I missing something here? But I'm looking at the evidence, and the complaints don't line up with what's actually happened. And they're getting emotionally charged over all of this, because what stays stamped in my mind is 96% of that 7,000. That's alarming, it's concerning, and I have a hard time with that one. Okay? Now, in the last 30 to 40 years, let's just look at some numbers here. The last 30 or 40 years, the number of black suspects that were killed by law enforcement has declined by 75%. When you look at the fact that 70 to 80% of black homes are being ran without the male or the father in the home, you've solved the puzzle that Obama was talking about. And that's, without the head of the family, the goods will be spoiled in that house. All the possessions, all the people there. And this is biblical. This is biblical. For the Christian man who's listening to this, this is biblical. You take the strong man out of the house, you spoil the home. And I'm sure that this is probably the case in just about every religion you look into. No matter where you look across the board around the world, is that the man or the father is a force to be reckoned with when he's in the home. If he's out of the home, Satan has his rule. And the book of Mark, chapter 3, verse 27, states it so. And I'm going to read from the New Living Translation. Who is powerful enough to enter the house of a strong man like Satan and plunder his goods? Only someone even stronger. Someone who could tie him up and then plunder his house. Now, you may look at it one way, but this is what it's saying pretty clearly. That Satan can destroy your home. Not mankind. Satan will use people, but I'm letting you know right now, this is very profound. And I'll use another translation, the King James Version, that many of you may want to use as your original English text, and that's that no man can enter into a strong man's house and spoil his goods, except he will first bind the strong man, and then he will spoil his house. Now, I'll be wise enough to say, just like the average man, that this may not be the case 100% of the time when you're dealing with these homes, but we all pretty much know that in the system right now, there's not an issue with the racial inequality as much as it is that many of these young men who are growing up don't have a father to raise them. We like to deal with this father issue ad nauseam on this program because we feel like that before we start pointing the fingers in other directions, we have to deal with who's in the mirror. And that's what, deal with home first. And we're going to talk much about this and also going forward, discuss even going all the way back to the Old Testament in the Bible. When you look at Deuteronomy, how these people were sacrificing their children for the sake to get by. And it's happening today. It just may not be happening in the same exact way, but they're sacrificing their children to idols or false gods. And during the Freddie Gray incident, I just want to bring this up as I draw this thing closer to a close. And I say during the Freddie Gray incident that happened in Baltimore, which 3 of the officers involved in that incident were actually black. It's evident that this was not a racially charged issue until people around America made it a racially charged issue. I mean, Baltimore, 45% black. They give you the outside the box aspect because not many people are talking about this. Outside the box right here. 45% of the culture population there, black. City council, I believe, was 100% Democrat. The top of the food chain, from the top cop, the second cop in command, most of the command staff there, the mayor, and I believe even the attorney general, black. Another outside the box approach. When you look at these impactful areas, it's like an atomic bomb is going off. It affects multiple areas of the black family, like the welfare system. And how many of us are on welfare? The murders of various kinds that are taking place around the country. Crime increase in those areas. The ability to compete for significant jobs in the workplace around the country. And more likely, these are the same people who will have most of the contact with police or be arrested. Now, I want you to just really marinate on that for a while until we come together again, because there's many things that we need to dive into in these areas and break this down into bite-sized pieces so we can come up with solutions to these problems. One of those solutions I will say right now, and that's movements can't heal us as people. But taking control of our individual lives and becoming master of our emotions, submitting ourselves under God's rule, heals. That's what heals. It's a choice. Because no matter what improvements are made in the environment you're in or the system that you're in, you must make a choice to move forward without blame. No man or woman from any race or any background can keep you from what God has for you. Make a choice to awaken. Break the stronghold. Help us in our effort to, as me and my wife would say, impact the world. We have a world to impact. So let's impact the world together. Let's come up with change. I'm ATN, outside the box, signing off.